Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 958 of the Juicebox Podcast. Bethany is on the show today. She is the mother of 4 children. One of them has type 1 diabetes. Her child uses Omnipod 5, and we have a lovely conversation. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you'd like to save 10% off your first month of therapy, use the link betterhelp.com/juicebox. To save 40% off of your entire order, use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout while at CozyEarth.com. And to get 5 free travel packs and a year's supply of vitamin D, go to my link, drinkag1.com/juicebox. You can drink the same drink that I do every morning. If you're looking for community around your diabetes, check out the Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. There's a private group and a public page. Make sure you join both. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour Next Gen Blood Glucose Meter. ContourNext.com/juicebox. You can use the same quality meters that we use in this house. Find out more at ContourNext.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored today by US Med. Now, US Med is the place where my daughter gets her diabetes supplies from, and you could too. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514.
Hi, I'm Bethany, and I'm here to talk about my daughter, Jane, that has diabetes.
Jane has diabetes.
Yes.
You are the parent of more than one child, though. Is that right?
Yes, I have 4 children. They are 3 boys and 1 girl. The girl has diabetes. They are 8, 6, 3.5, and 2.
8, 6, 3.5, and 2. And Jane is how old?
She is 6.
She's 6. Okay. 8, 6, 3.5, 2. Right. Anybody who's on the Facebook page knows I'm very sick right now, Bethany. So
yes,
if I say something like 5 seconds from now, like Jane is 3, you'll go, no, Scott, she's 6. Are you okay? That kind of thing. And she's had diabetes for a couple of years?
Yes, she was diagnosed 2 years ago tomorrow, actually.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you set this up on purpose? Sort
of. I mean, when I scheduled it, it was during this time anyway, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Okay. How did you figure out she had diabetes?
Well, her diagnosis story for me actually starts a couple months before diagnosis. She was diagnosed in October of 2020, and during the summer of 2020, everything was in shutdown and life was insane. And I had at the time 3 kids and I was extremely pregnant. And so Jane had a UTI in late June. And at that point, that was when everybody was doing remote telehealth, and like you really couldn't go into the pediatrician's office unless it was really bad. Mm-hmm. So I called the pediatrician and she gave me some suggestions of things to do at the house, and then to bring her back in a few days to see if those things were helping. And so we did that and took her in, and she definitely had a UTI, but they tested her urine. This is how I know for sure that in the end of June, she did not have any symptoms. So they tested her urine. She had a UTI. It was clearing. She said, keep doing what you're doing. You're good. So don't think anything of it.
You're saying that they saw her urine then and there was no talk about
diabetes at all, like no glucose, no ketones, none of that in her urine. Her urine, other than the fact of her having a UTI that was clearing, everything looked normal.
I got you. Okay.
So then she turned 4 in the end of September, and I had my 4th baby 2 days before she turned 4. And that was crazy, crazy times too. But when she turned 4, the day that I had my 4th child, of course, all of my babies are born in the middle of the night. So we leave our house at super, super early in the morning. My mom comes over to watch the rest of the kids. And when we got home, she told me, she was like, Jane wet the bed. And I was like, that's really weird. She hasn't done that in like over a year, but maybe it's just a fluke thing. I don't know. And then the next month was pure chaos because I had my oldest son at the time was in first grade doing entire remote learning in Spanish. He's in the Spanish immersion program. So everything was in Spanish. And then Jane was very sick, but I did not know what was happening. And then my next son, Levi, he was 18 months old and was literally like swinging from the chandeliers. And then I had a newborn and no sleep, all of that. And I just vividly remember looking over at Jane probably 2 weeks after my baby was born and said, Jane, do you feel okay? You don't look so good. And she's like, I'm just so, so tired, Mommy. I'm just so tired. And I felt terrible because in my mind, she was so tired because we'd moved her into the room with her brother. So her sleeping was not good. The baby was waking the whole house up multiple times a night. I already felt guilty and did not foresee the guilt that was going to come. But I was like, I'm just so sorry. Well, then about a week and a half after that, she wet the bed out of 7 nights. She wet the bed 5 nights out of 7.
Oh, wow.
And that was just not, the norm for her. So I knew something was wrong. I can't believe diabetes never crossed my mind at that time.
Why? Bethany, why? Why do you think that?
Because in retrospect, as soon as we got to the pediatrician and they said that there's glucose in her urine, my first thought was diabetes. She has diabetes. You don't have to tell me. She knows.
So you know something about diabetes prior to this?
Yes. So my first cousin, my mom's brother's son, has type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
And so my mom has always been looking out for my kids like, oh, they're drinking a lot of water. Do you think they have diabetes? They're drinking a lot of water. But my kids only drink water. And it was hot. We're in North Carolina, so it's super, super hot. Even in September, October, it's, getting up in the 80s and 90s. They drink tons of water. So I was always like, Mom, my kids are fine. My kids are fine. So I didn't think anything of it. I thought, she must have another UTI, but I remember telling my husband, I think she has a UTI, but her symptoms are completely different this time. And so I tried to get her in on a Friday, but it was a teacher work day. All my kids were home and didn't have anything to do. So they were crazy. And I called the pediatrician's office. They didn't have an appointment. And I said, I think it's a UTI. And she said, well, let's just do what you did last time that worked and then bring her in on Monday. She already had her 4-year-old well visit scheduled for Monday. So they said, just wait until Monday and we'll check. So I'm kind of thankful that happened the way it did, because at least we had one more weekend of not insanity.
Wait, it sounds like everything was pretty insane, but
it was. Yeah. Yes, you're right.
I have questions before we move forward.
Yeah,
so
sure.
We're at the second UTI theory, but let's hold that. So first of all, I heard a humble brag where you told me your son's in a complete Spanish immersion.
I didn't mean for it to be.
No. And I heard another humble brag. The kids only drink water. That was nice. We hear you're a good mom. I thought for a while you must live in Utah because you've got 4 kids under the age of 6. I thought you were building an army for the Lord. But
I was expecting you to think that I was in Utah, actually. Yeah, I'm married to my high school sweetheart as well. So if I figured if I had thrown that in, that would have sealed the deal of me being in Utah.
But you live in North Carolina.
Yes.
But you're definitely a Mormon, right?
No.
Oh, okay. Wow. You check a lot of boxes in case you want to get in.
Yeah, they might make some good friends.
I think possibly not actually being that would slow you down from getting in. But I don't know how you get in. I'm sure there's probably an application process. But I think they would take you in 3 seconds. Is what I'm saying. I mean, you're 4/5 of the way to a basketball team, and
True.
They would definitely let you in. Okay, so isn't it interesting that you listened to the podcast and then thought to yourself, he's going to think I'm Mormon based on how my life is set up? Do you come from a big family?
No, actually, I don't at all. I just have one sister, and each of my parents only had one sibling as well. So.
Your husband come from a big family?
He has one biological brother, one half sister, one adopted sister, and one sort of adopted brother. So Yes.
That's a yes. It's not like a dominance thing. Like he doesn't jump out of bed and yell, "I got you pregnant again" or something like that.
No,
Nothing like that. Yeah, okay.
No, we always wanted 4 kids.
Oh, so. Wow. Okay. And how old are you?
34.
Wow. 34, 6. That's nice. That's a good age. I like the age. All right. So, isn't it nice that I've given my permission that it's okay how old you are for your children? By the way, people don't know, Bethany, let's tell them here. I've said it once, but I'm going to say it again. I'm very sick. So this could go a number of different ways. I am keeping up, though. You thought that her symptoms of diabetes mimicked enough of the UTI that you went back again. The doctor put you on that process. Let's try these things again. I'm assuming they didn't work this time.
Well, no, because, she didn't have a UTI. So we ended up going in the following Monday, which was October 26th, for her well visit. And again, it's during COVID, so we have to wait in the car for forever. And they bring us in. It's just me, Jane, and then my newborn. At the time, he's 4 weeks old. And the nurse is like, "Okay, you're here for a well visit. Do you have any concerns?" I said, "I think she might have a UTI. There's something going on." And she's like, "Okay, no problem. We'll get a urine sample. The doctor will be in to talk to you, about normal 4-year-old things."
Yeah.
So we're in that process. And then the nurse comes in and interrupts the doctor and shows her a sticky note and said this was her urine. And she said, "Are you sure?" She said, "I ran it twice." And I knew right then before they even said anything. And I said, "Oh no." And she said, "There's glucose in your urine, but that it might be okay. Don't panic yet." And, Jane has no idea what's going on. And I'm like already starting to cry. I'm also extremely hormonal postpartum, can't control anything. So she's like, "It's okay. It's okay." And she said, "What did Jane have for breakfast?" And I had no clue what the child had for breakfast.
Whatever she found on the floor, lady.
Yeah, I was like, my life is insane right now. I said, "Daddy was in charge of breakfast. Janie, what did you have for breakfast, honey?" She said, "I had cinnamon toast waffles with syrup and whipped cream and a Pop-Tart." I was like, oh my gosh.
It does sound like what your husband would do. So,
yeah. My kids, they only drink water. All of it.
Yeah, they only drink water when they're with you, by the way.
Right. So
they're drinking maple syrup when they're with your husband.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh. She said, "Okay, well, she sounds like she had a lot of sugar for breakfast. It could just be a fluke thing. We're going to prick her finger." And, even though at the time I had a general idea of diabetes, I did not know specifics. So she was like, "We want it to be around 100 up to 150 max." And I was like, okay. And so they prick her, they wash her hands, prick her finger. It was 600. And she was like, "Okay, you're going to need to go to the hospital, but your baby can't go with you to the hospital."
Oh, because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
Can I tell you one thing about COVID? I didn't get freaking sick once during COVID, Bethany. Never once. I was as healthy as a horse when I was locked in my house. And now my chest hurts and my head is spinny and I'm hot and cold. COVID saved us. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Okay. So
well, the irony for me was that I had a whole baby and avoided the hospital entirely. I didn't even go to the hospital when I had him. And now I'm like, we're going to have to go to the hospital.
Oh, Bethany, where did the baby come out? In the driveway?
Well, no, almost though. No, we used a birth center just to be able to avoid the hospital setting. And it was an amazing, wonderful experience. But the birth center is an hour away from us. And I literally thought I was going to have him in the driveway. So he came. Oh my
gosh. Okay.
About 20 minutes after we pulled in.
There's no way your husband could have delivered the baby because we saw how he made breakfast. So.
Well, that's true. Although he really wanted to have the baby in the car, he thought that'd be a really cool story. So.
Well, he's not wrong about that. Honestly, even the thing about me being sick is a great story. I realized yesterday when I got done, I told Bethany something before we started recording, which I don't know if I'll share with people on the podcast or not. But even as horrible as it was a good story. You know what I mean? So yeah. I would do it for the story too. Although you're ruining the leather, I would imagine. Yeah. I did pack lots of towels and trash bags and that sort of thing because I really thought he was coming in the car. Oh, so. No kidding. You were actually concerned about it. Yes, I very much. I mean, fourth child, he came real quick. Oh, yeah. Girls that haven't had a baby don't know what you're talking about, but yeah. It's true. Yeah, they start flying out. Yes. You almost have to slow them down. You know what I mean? Like put rubber bands at the end or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling myself, just don't let your water break, because the water breaks and the baby's here for me. So.
You know how those jets land on the aircraft carriers?
Yes.
And then they hit the hook on the wire. That's sort of what they should maybe do. I don't know how you'd work that out. I'm not an engineer, Bethany. But yeah. Okay, so all right. So now we've got to go to the hospital. I'm assuming you got to pass the baby off to somebody else in your family.
Yeah, I mean that came into a big complication though, because he'd never had a bottle. I didn't have any breast milk saved up. I mean, we're only 4 weeks in, so I had no way to feed him. So the nurse and the pediatrician were amazing. Like they gave me bottles of water, they gave me samples of formula, they gave me like the little bottles to mix it all in. So they sent me with everything that I needed. But, you know, getting a baby to take formula that's never had formula is not the easiest thing in the world. So that did not go well. So it was the story of my life during that time. It was chaos. I had my mom pick up my other 2 boys, one from preschool and one from my husband's work. I had my husband meet me at the hospital. I had his mom drive separately and meet us at the hospital. I had the baby in my car with Aaron's mom, and I would run down every 3 hours and nurse him and then go back up. And she just stayed in the car pretty much for 2 days with him. I came home with the baby, and my husband stayed overnight while Jane was in the hospital.
This day, on this exact day, I heard a knock at the door. A rat-a-tat-tat. I walked downstairs. I was up here making the podcast. I said, who could this be knocking at my door? You know who it was? It was the UPS guy. You know what he had? Arden's Dexcom G7s. Do you know where they came from? US Med. usmed.com/juicebox. Why do I tell you this? Well, just a few days ago. Actually, on the 10th. Today is the 19th. So on the 10th, I got an email. It said, greetings, Arden. Your next order of supplies is eligible to ship. And I was like, ooh, I clicked the words, confirm my order, right in the email. 7 days later, I got another email that said the order was on its way. And 2 days after that, 9 days after the first email arrived, Arden's Dexcom G7s were in our kitchen. The next time Arden is eligible for her Omnipod supplies, the same exact thing is going to happen. usmed.com/juicebox or 888-721-1514. Use the link or the phone number to get your free benefits check and get started with US Med. US Med carries everything from insulin pumps and diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs like Freestyle Libre 3 and the Dexcom G7. But if you want the Libre 2 or the Dexcom G6, they have those as well. They have Omnipod DASH, Omnipod 5, and the Tandem T-Slim X2. US Med always provides 90 days worth of supplies, and as you just heard, fast and free shipping. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Better service and better care is what you're going to get from US Med. You're using insulin. You need your blood sugar measurements to be accurate and easy. Get yourself a contour meter. contournext.com/juicebox. Why do you want a contour meter? Well, they're incredibly accurate. That's the first and probably, for my money, the most important reason. They also have a bright light for nighttime viewing. The screens are incredibly easy to use. And those test strips have second chance technology. If you'd like to get more out of your data, use the free Contour app and pair it with your meter. Just right on your phone, right to your meter, stores all your data, lets you make sense of it. contournext.com/juicebox. The Contour Next Gen, Contour Next 1, the entire line of meters is not to be missed. Arden has been using a Contour meter for so many years now, I honestly can't remember how many. We absolutely love it. It's easy to hold, easy to use, and of course, once again, second chance test strips. So if you touch that blood, don't get quite enough, or you fumble with the meter, you go back, get the rest of that blood, and you don't mess up the accuracy of the test or ruin the test strip. And the amount of blood you need is very small. You're going to love this meter. Go check out the website. You can actually buy right on the website. It's possible that the meter and the strips could cost you less in cash than you're paying right now for the meter you're using. And is that meter, the one you're using right now, is it even any good? You don't know, do you? But take it from me, the Contour meters are absolutely fabulous. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Contour, US Med, and all the sponsors.
But my mother-in-law and my newborn stayed in the car for probably about 8 hours the first day, and then probably close to 8 to 10 hours the second day.
Bethany, do you have like a Harvard business degree or something? Why are you so good at coordinating things?
Well, I majored in math and taught high school math for a while, so I guess I have a...
I mean, you are coordinating the entirety of this thing, plus your boobs need to go somewhere else, not where you're going. Did you ever consider your husband going to the hospital and you staying with the baby, or did you have trouble?
He did. Thankfully, they did allow both of us to be in the hospital, which was, we weren't sure, because the rules and everything, we didn't know if we'd both be allowed up, but they wanted both of us there so that we could both be trained. And I knew from the very beginning that I would be the one managing Jane's diabetes because I stay at home. So, it was essential that I was there. So sure. that part wasn't that much of an option. I mean, I love my husband and I trust him dearly, but I needed to hear the information for myself, not from him. So
yeah, no, I understand. Was the information valuable?
It was. And, at the time I didn't realize how great we had it in listening to the podcast and other people's stories. There obviously are a lot of doctors and professionals out there who don't think the way that you think and the way that you manage diabetes and that sort of thing. And clearly our endocrinologist and our diabetes educator both had very much the same mindset as you. So, when they were training us, they said, okay, she's so tiny, here's her ratios and everything, but right now we're going to give her insulin after she eats, but eventually you want to get to the point where you give it to her before, and probably even like 10 or 15 minutes before. And I was like, well, why are we giving it to her after now? And they're like, well, because you don't always know what she eats or what she's going to eat. And I was like, well, let's give it to her beforehand. And if, she starts to go low or changes her mind or whatever, I'll give her candy. She'll always eat candy, it'll be fine.
I'll let my husband cook for her. It'll be okay.
Exactly. So they gave me a lot of good, helpful information and were very supportive. So she was diagnosed on a Monday. She spent Monday night. Thankfully, she was not in DKA. We caught it very early.
Yeah.
Her A1C was 7.3 at diagnosis. So it was not, I didn't know at the time how good or bad that was. So in retrospect, it was pretty good.
For everything that was going on, Bethany, I think it's astonishing that you picked it up. Like, really, it's well done. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny because you're going to tell me soon, I imagine, that you feel incredible guilt about something, which, but it sounds like you figured this out very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I am thankful that we did catch it so early. I do feel like I could have caught it 2 weeks earlier, but honestly, 2 weeks earlier probably wouldn't made that big of a difference for Jane. And it would have made my life significantly more difficult having had a 2-week-old. But yeah, so she came home on Tuesday. She only had to spend one night in the hospital. So that was good. And then we came home, shots and finger pricks. We did not get a Dexcom in the hospital, but they told me about it and they said, we want to get you on one as soon as possible. So let's make a, in-office endocrinologist appointment on Friday and we'll get you set up with that. Also, I want to say this. So our family in general, our immediate family, like my children and my husband and I, are typically very healthy people. We get the common cold and that sort of stuff. But before diabetes, we did not have a single prescription that we were ever taking on any of us, never had to go to the doctor except for well visits, basically. So my husband's self-employed, and the way insurance works, it was astronomically expensive to have insurance for us and for children. So we looked into all the options, and at the time we had decided to be on a health share plan, which I don't know how much you know about that.
Help share?
Health share.
Health share. Okay.
Yeah, like a medical health share plan.
Okay.
So basically you pay a much lower rate every month, and then they cover well visits. They do cover sick visits and illnesses and things like that, but they have a lot of rules and a lot of things that they don't cover. And at the time when we decided that, obviously we did not know that Jane was going to get diabetes. So we were like, oh, well, we don't have any of these chronic conditions. We're not going to have any of these we'll be fine. So one of my first thoughts as soon as I realized diabetes, I was like, oh my gosh, our health share doesn't cover diabetes. Like
it barely covers anything. Yeah.
Yes. They won't cover insulin. They won't cover anything. So of course, like, not only am I trying to figure out the logistics of maneuvering all of my children and keeping everyone safe, I'm also like on the phone with the company. Like, can we go to the hospital? Can we get insulin? Like, what can we do? Right. So that was a nightmare in and of itself.
Bethany, what does your husband do for work that he can support 6 people and he's doing it on his own? Is he like a drug mule or something? Or is he bringing weed up from Mexico or something? Or what? No.
He sells cars. He's a car dealer. Like he's got his own car lot.
I see. Okay. I was like, wow, that's well done. If you can afford to keep, unless you're living in the middle of literally nowhere and it's super free to live. But North Carolina is not a cheap place to live. So I was impressed. Tell your husband I was impressed. I'm not impressed with how he feeds your children, but I am very much impressed with the rest of it.
That's so funny. I actually haven't even told him that I'm doing this. So.
Oh yeah, then don't tell him. He doesn't need to know. Right? Just tell him. Yeah, just tell him to keep making the money. You got bills.
That's right. That's right. He doesn't have time to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, you're busy, buddy. Get in there and sell a car.
That's right.
Do you ask him hello at the end of the day? You say hello, or do you go, how many cars did you sell?
Oh, no, I say hello. I've gotten to the point now, so many years now, that I don't even really ask him how many cars. The kids will ask, did you sell a car today?
Yeah. That's really nice. Listen, I'm basically a small business owner, and most of my day is spent going, don't let everybody down. Don't let everybody down. So,
yes. Yes.
I understand. Okay. So, well, Jesus, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But did you handle it as well as it sounds like you did, or how were you doing on the inside?
On the inside, I was not okay. But literally, I felt like I was drowning, and it just was like, okay, just survive. We're just going to survive. Everybody's going to get through this. There's this old song. I don't even know when it's from or who sings it, but it's like, I don't want to sing on here, but it's like, oh child, things are going to get easier.
Yeah, sure. Is that an old song?
Well, it's old for me, I think.
Oh, because you're 34? Is this another humble brag that you're younger than I am? Hold on a second.
No.
My kids speak Spanish. My kids drink
70s.
Water.
Now we have juice in our fridge all the time. Oh, it's like so ironic. But
hold on, I got the lyrics.
Okay. I feel like it's probably from the 70s.
Song by
late
5
70s.
Stair Steps, 1970.
Yeah.
Oh, they use this in the See, my brain's not working right now, Bethany, because I'm dying. Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't they use this in Guardians of the Galaxy?
I don't know. I haven't seen that.
What the hell are you doing with your time? What are you taking care of those kids?
Taking care of kids.
Ooh, child, things are going to get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter.
Yes.
Right.
So
okay.
That song popped up in my head when we were in the hospital, and literally I just had that on repeat. Those 2 lines, that's all I knew. But it's going to get easier. It's going to get brighter. It's going to get easier. It's going to get brighter. But then things got really bad for me shortly thereafter. So
the song didn't work?
Yeah. It helped with my mental state probably, but physically I started having some problems. So Jane got her Dexcom on Friday, and that was so helpful. Like, that was so nice. That I was not sleeping at all, because between the baby and then diabetes, just like constantly like not sleeping at all. And so probably about 2 full weeks after Jane was diagnosed, I was having I did not know what was happening to me, but I remember standing in the kitchen holding my baby and looking at my husband and saying, something is not right with me. I am not okay. And he was like, be more specific. Tell me what's going on. And I was like, I feel like I'm about to have a heart attack. My heart is racing all the time. I cannot sleep even when I'm allowed to sleep, like when the kids are
3 hours in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Like I can't fall asleep. Just like everything is crazy. I'm losing tons of weight, even though I'm eating everything in sight. Like I don't know what's going on. And so he had an Apple Watch and he was like, start wearing this to monitor your heart rate, because that's what I'm concerned about the most. And like even just completely resting heart rate, sitting down, holding the baby, my heart rate was 150 beats per minute.
Wow.
And so I was like, I'm not okay. So I went to my midwife that we used to deliver Noah and was like, I something's not okay with me. And I don't know if it's just sleep deprivation or what. And she felt my thyroid and said, your thyroid's really enlarged. You need to go to an endocrinologist. And she's like, I think you have postpartum thyroiditis, which I had never heard of before. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay. So then, I call every endocrinologist around us, and I did not realize how hard it is to get in with an adult endocrinologist. So finally got an appointment, maybe like a week later. And the lady will not say where she was or her name, but she was so incredibly rude. And it took me very off guard because Jane's endocrinologist was the best of the best. And in hindsight now, Jane's endocrinologist has left, which I literally cried when she left. And we've had a terrible, terrible experience ever since. So I did not realize at the time how amazing it was that we had a great endocrinologist with Jane's. But I walked in and the lady was like, I don't even know why you're here. You just are stressed because your daughter has diabetes and you're not getting enough sleep. You just need to go sleep. And I was like, okay.
Wait, so this endo, were they like a thyroid specialist or just?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And heard your symptoms and was like, that's not that.
Oh, she hadn't even heard my symptoms yet. Oh. She just walked in and said that. She's like, you don't need to be here.
She doesn't drink enough water. If you were her mom, she'd be happier.
That's right.
I think so. Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm going to advocate for myself and say that I'm not leaving until I have some blood work done and anything else that needs to determine what's going on with me. And so she was like, well, so she listened to my symptoms and she was like, well, I really just think that you're just stressed and overtired and you need to go home and sleep, but I'll agree to doing blood work. But she literally said, but I know it's going to come back normal. And I was like, okay.
All right.
So I had blood work done. And then, within 24 hours, it was up on where I could get it in my chart or whatever. And I can't remember like which ways the numbers go, but whatever it was supposed to be, it was like completely opposite, like off the chart.
Were you hyper or hypo?
So I was hyper.
Yeah, I thought so.
And so that's why my heart was racing. I was having a restless leg. I wasn't sleeping, the anxiety, like on top of already having anxiety, it was bad. And so then she messaged me and she was like, well, you were right. And I was like, thank you.
She didn't say I was wrong, because that would have been the more appropriate response.
Right.
Yeah.
No. And she's like, I'm going to send over some medicine. Well, then of course, like, because I'm nursing a newborn, I look it up in the medicine. It specifically says like not to take it if you're breastfeeding, because it'll lower your heart rate and the baby's heart rate. And like, it was just one thing after another. So I had to figure out all of that. But then she told me, she said, most likely this is postpartum thyroiditis. And so you'll start in hyper and you'll stay in hyper for a period of time. Then you'll go into hypothyroidism. And then if you're lucky, you'll come out and you'll be normal. But a lot of people stay in the hypo stage. So I was like, oh, great.
Oh, so she did know what she was talking about. She was just a jerk.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay. I got
exactly.
it. Okay, I understand. Well, listen, that's better than her being a jerk and not knowing what she's talking about.
That's true, I guess. Yes. Look on the bright side. Things will get brighter. Yeah. So
you were probably singing like crazy in that appointment. Like, hey, yes, girl, things are going to get easier.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. It was crazy. So
should have asked her if she knows that song. Be like, listen, I need someone to come through for me. Yes. I'm fascinated by that. Like all this that's happened to you. And your birthing person so far is the most, I'm assuming they don't have a degree.
No, not in, I mean, not in thyroid or anything.
They like sell cars with your husband on the weekends or something like that, right? And then they make the babies come out. And I mean, so you have a good experience at the hospital, but I always wonder about, is it just people who work with children? Are they in a default Mr. Rogers setting? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you got them alone, would they just be hard? Would some of them be like real jackasses too? But they're just in that like, you know what I mean? Because you always hear people say, you know, when we lost our child's endo, we realized how terrible, blah, blah, blah. Like, that story is really common, right? My child's endo was great.
Right.
But I think people just mean like pleasant. Like, look at our line of what we're expecting. Like, just human. Like, people are human and they say hello and smile and look in your face and don't treat you like an idiot when you ask a question. And that we call good. The bar's pretty low, Bethany. I have to say, we've come to expect nothing for some reason. I'm sorry. So she said she tells you about this whole swing that's probably going to happen.
Yes.
Puts you on. You're hyper at that point. What did she put you on?
Honestly, I don't even remember.
Yeah, you weren't on it that long, huh?
Yeah. Okay. So I was not on it long. So I ended up only taking half a dose because I was concerned. So then I talked to the pediatrician and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to take this medicine, but I'm nursing. It says not to take it when nursing, but all of the ones that lower my heart rate, because that was the biggest concern, was my heart rate at the time, what can also lower the baby's heart rate. So what do I need to do? So then on top of monitoring everything else in my life at the moment, the pediatrician's like, you need to get a pulse ox monitor and monitor your baby's oxygen levels and your baby's heart rate. Like, okay, great.
You're rethinking these kids at this point, right, Bethany?
Well, I was like, you're getting a vasectomy. Like, we already scheduled this. It was scheduled the Friday that Jane got her Dexcom. That was the day that my sister-in-law took my husband to get his vasectomy. It's like, we are not having any
Bethany, let me say something here. If people don't think you're a good person, this is the moment when they know you are. Because you have 4 children, all these things happen, and you are still having sex with your husband. You're such a nice lady. I'm sorry. Well, I can't laugh all day.
It was really poor timing because then he was down for like a whole nother week. And
what a baby. Are you kidding me, Bethany? You're going through all of this and his vas deferens get cut and he can't stand up for a week?
Yeah. But it was okay. We made it. It did get easier.
Things got easier. Yeah.
Yes, they got easier. So yeah, I only took half a pill for a brief amount of time. I feel like it was not even a full month. And I could just tell my own, I'm just very in tune with my body. So I could tell, okay, I feel like I'm going into hypo. So I stopped taking the medicine because the endocrinologist wasn't helpful. And then I knew I was in hypo. Everything slows down. And then you're dealing with low heart rate, low energy, depression, all of that kind of stuff. And
did your weight bounce when you got?
Yes. Unfortunately, that was the nicest thing about being in hyper. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm losing this baby weight so easy. This is great. And then it was like, oh wait, it's all coming back.
Isn't it interesting? By the way, Bethany, with isn't it interesting? The entirety of the planet seems to struggle with their weight in some way or another, but your thyroid just gets turned a little too far one way.
Yeah. And it's just
50 pounds drop off you like it's nothing.
Yes. Yeah. It is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yeah, that all came back and has stuck around.
It doesn't seem to be leaving.
Yeah.
Well,
a little bit would be fun.
What are your level? Are you still medicated or did this?
No. So I never actually started taking anything for the hypo, mostly because I went back and did more blood work and she was like, yeah, you are in hypo. And I was like, okay, well, what do we need to do? And she's like, just wait it out and see if you come back up into normal levels or if you're going to stay here forever. And I was like, okay.
This doesn't seem like solid advice.
No.
Yeah, my son was in that same situation and Addie was like, well, we'll medicate you. And if the medicine starts pushing you the wrong way, then we'll stop. We'll just let you suffer until we see what's going on.
Right. Okay. It was very frustrating.
Yeah.
So thankfully that stage did not last very long either. And it was just I can't even remember, maybe a couple weeks up to maybe a month. I know by probably shortly after Christmas, let's see, October, November, December, probably by the end of January, I would say I was back into normal range. And now, I'm pretty adamant about having my levels checked at least once a year. And thankfully I've stayed in range in a good spot. So,
okay. So it did actually resolve.
Yes.
Do you, when they check your levels, do you have somebody physically check your thyroid as well?
I was trying to think. Yes.
Good.
I do. Yeah.
Good. Well, that's excellent. Look at you taking care of things.
Trying. Got to take care of me. Put the mask on yourself first before taking care of the children.
Well, I mean, especially in your situation, because their husband, he wants, apparently he still expects sex all the time. So
he really is an amazing husband. I don't want to throw him under the bus.
Not in my mind. I'm having fun making fun of him. I'm sure he's delightful. I don't feel good, Bethany. And my humor stick is only so powerful today. So I have to go with what's right in front of me, because if I even take too much of a deep breath, I'm going to go into a coughing fit that will disgust you and everybody listening. I'm recording with my window open, which I've never done before, because I need the fresh air so I don't pass out.
Oh, man.
It's all good, though. Don't worry. I'm fine. And you have a ton of energy, which is really helpful today, because if I had to drag this story out of you, I don't know what I would do today. I'd be like, yeah, that's it, huh? Okay. Well,
I don't know that anyone has described me as having tons of energy in probably about 8 years.
Bethany, you are chatty as a motherfucker. Don't know that?
Oh, well, I don't get to talk to adults very often, so it's kind of...
Geez, you're upsetting if you're counting me as an adult. I'll tell you that right now. Like, you might need to get out. Seriously.
Yeah, I've been trying.
What would you do for fun if you didn't have those kids?
Oh, you don't want to know.
I do actually want to know. Would you do something like...
Well, right now in my spare time, I quilt. I make quilts.
Oh, I thought you were going to say heroin for sure, but quilting. Okay. Yeah.
I'm basically a grandma.
How long have you been that way?
Probably all my life. I've been quilting for, I don't know, 14 years maybe.
The first time my son asked me, I came and saw a baseball game at college. He's not in college anymore, but he said, "Can you give my girlfriend a ride home afterwards?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Mm-hmm. It's the first time I had spent any time with her, and she pulled out knitting needles. I'm like, "Aren't you 21?" And she's like, she's doing this whole thing, and I don't know what it is, and she just goes, "This isn't wide enough." And I went, "Okay." I don't know anything about it. Then I watched her disassemble the entire thing, just pull it apart, and just start over again. I was like, I couldn't even understand how you make the two knitting needles turn into a blanket. But when she pulled it apart, I was like, that's amazing. I would just quit. I know for sure if I got the thing and I was like, oh, it's not wide enough, I'd be like, I don't knit anymore. That's exactly what I would do. Knitting is over now.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm not restarting this. It's over. But anyway, I guess it's just relaxing for people, huh?
It is. Yeah.
Are you nervous or...
About this interview?
No, do you knit or quilt to relax?
Yeah, just to slow down, I think, because, my life is still fairly chaotic and full of lots of loud noises and messes and, small children and all of their stuff. So it's calming. Yes.
I'd love to tell you that it'll get better when they get older, but it just changes. The horror just morphs into something different. So there's no getting out of this. You'll be paying for these kids till you drop dead.
Yeah.
in one way or another.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Either it'll be financially, emotionally, with your body, your spirit, something. Yeah. Yeah.
They're worth it though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course they are. Yeah. It's a joy.
That's so funny.
It's a joy. It's absolute joy. I remember the part when they were little being delightful. Here, let me give you a story. Yesterday, I guess I am going to talk about this. I was recording a special episode for Xeris. Xeris is the company that makes Gvoke HypoPen. It's Jenny and I, and 4 people, 2 people from the company, 2 people from a PR agency, all on this call together. I am as sick as I don't know why people say sick as a dog. My dog hasn't been sick one day in its freaking life, as far as I can tell. I mean, the closest my dogs come to looking sick is rubbing their ass on the ground a little extra. So anyway, I don't know. Where does sick... All right, hold on a second, Bethany. Oh, now we got to find out where sick as a dog comes from. 1 second. Sick as a dog. Etymology. Don't be impressed that I know etymology. The origin of the phrase sick as a dog can be found in the early 1700s when it was common to compare undesirable things to dogs. No, The explanation for this isn't that people didn't like dogs. It is that diseases such as the plague were often spread via animals like rats, birds, and unfortunately dogs. Oh, sick as a dog. Got it. All right. Well, anyway, Bethany, I was sick as a dog yesterday. My fever broke during the recording of this episode. I was sweating in sheets, not in drops, but in like the entirety of my body was wet the whole time. There's a massive amount of information that has to be delivered in two specific ways. The first specific way is it needs to be conversational. It's not just a reading of a list. So you're taking actual things that need to be said, sometimes word for word for legal reasons, and weaving it into a conversation. This is not normally how Jenny and I work, but we figure we can do it. So there's that task. The other task is that I'm being watched by a number of people, which I don't usually do. That I wasn't bothered by so much. Anyway, I literally hit record. I say, hey, Jenny, say testing for me. Testing. And then my phone rings. And I look over because it's muted. And it's Arden. I'm like, hey, guys, I'm sorry. This is my daughter. I'm going to answer this before we start. I pick up the phone and she goes, now I was worried, Bethany, because I had received a text from her just moments before that, which I was seeing at the same time as the call. Let me see if I can find the original text, because I think it makes the story better. Okay, I'm going to kill myself.
Oh, no.
So, I don't have a lot of confidence picking up the phone.
Right.
And I pick up the phone and I'm like, hey, what's wrong? Dad, I was getting off the bus and I started walking and I realized I lost my ID.
Oh.
And I turned back around to look for it and I went on the bus and the bus driver goes, are you looking for your ID? And I said, yeah, how do you know that? She goes, I watched it fall out of your pants while you're walking down the street. Somebody picked it up. So I ran after a bunch of people and I was yelling, hey, does somebody pick up my ID? Nobody answered me. I look like an idiot. I can't buy lunch. I can't get into these buildings. I can't do anything. I can get back into the room. And she's going on and on. I have her on speakerphone while all these people are listening. People who I'm trying to enact a business relationship with.
Right.
And who B, I've just told 5 seconds prior, hey, I'm incredibly sick, but don't worry, you won't notice while I'm recording this. Except I'm literally look like I'm kicking heroin as it's happening, right? So this is not a great start. And she goes through the whole thing. I said, Arden, listen, I'm working right now. Here's what you should do. Call security, ask them what to do, call your RA. And she goes, but I'm like, Arden, figure it out. And like I didn't hang up on her, but we said goodbye.
Right.
And then Jenny starts laughing. She goes, what a parental thing to say, figure it out. I'm like, what do you want me to do? She lost a plastic card. She should figure it out. And then I don't know, 3 hours later, I'm like, are you all right? You got your card and everything? She's like, yeah, I got a new one. It's fine. And then out of nowhere, she goes, is the world effing with me? And I was like, why? And she said, somebody found my card and is trying to give it back to me. And she's like, but that one's deactivated now. I don't need it. I was like, oh, they're trying to be nice. You should let them give it back to you. Anyway, if that's what you're saying about kids are great, then yeah, sure. They're terrific. It's the only interaction I had with my daughter yesterday.
That's so funny. I can't even imagine my kids that old. That seems like it's forever away. I know it's not, but.
Yeah, it happens really fast, but it's very strange. Like my wife and I were in the kitchen yesterday. We're all sick, so it's a lot of fun. We're up to the part of sick where there's dishes in the sink and people are like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't even we worked very hard for this house, but if it falls apart, whatever. I can't do anything about it. I'm sick. And my wife says, Arden's been gone for so long already. And she's really been gone 6 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
And she's like, I very badly need to give Arden a hug.
Aww.
And I was like, oh, I know. I was like, we're going to go get her pretty soon. And she's like, don't you feel like that sometimes? And I was like, I do. But I do things like I watch TV shows that Arden and I watch together and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like when she's not here, and like I do little things like that to make me feel like she's around.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Do you feel like that about Cole ever?" I was like, Cole was different. Like Cole was playing baseball. Like he was doing the thing he really wanted to be doing, and he was super busy. So I never worried about him like that. Although I get like very upset if Cole gets sick. And I just think that's because Arden has diabetes.
Yeah.
When Cole gets sick, I get like viscerally upset. And so I think I don't want him to get type 1. I'm not a therapist.
I understand that.
Yeah. I'm not a therapist, Bethany, but I'm pretty sure that's where the feeling comes from. What have you done so far? Like, are there cameras on the other 3 kids? Have you done TrialNet or something like that? What are you doing?
I ordered the kits for TrialNet shortly after Jane was diagnosed. And they honestly have just been sitting in my closet, me trying to decide if I want to know. I can't decide if it's better to know or better to not know. I mean, now that I do know all of the symptoms, I check all of my kids' blood sugars on a pretty regular basis. And so I try not to worry too much about that. I think, I don't know, I'm so torn as which is better, but I haven't sent them in. So other than that, it's mostly just like my husband makes pancake breakfast on Saturday mornings. So seems right. So I'm just like, okay, we're all going to take our blood sugars now. So there was one time where my oldest son's blood sugar was like 197 or something. And my husband and I both looked at each other and sort of panicked. And I was like, go wash your hands. I was like, what did you just eat? This was not after pancake. This was like in the middle of the day randomly, and washed his hands and then checked it. And then it was totally normal. It was like 92 or something. And I was like, what was on your hands? And he was like, oh, well, I just ate a banana and had it all over me. And I just wiped it on my pants. And I was like, okay, that explains it.
That's an honest answer.
8-year-old boys are gross.
I wipe my hands on my pants, Mom, just so you know. This is my cleansing process right here.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, but I really, I go through times where I am very worried about that for my other kids. And then other times when I just realize I can't control that. So I need to not worry about it and just be on the lookout for symptoms. Okay. So,
yeah. How about, did you dig more into your family? Because now you had a thyroid issue. Your daughter has type 1. Did you find other autoimmune stuff?
Yeah. So, I knew that my cousin had type 1, but I didn't realize until listening to the podcast which I started very early on after her diagnosis, but about the association with other autoimmune diseases. So then I asked, our parents, and my husband's mom has thyroid issues. My husband's brother has thyroid issues. My mom's mom had thyroid. There's just like a lot of thyroid. There's no other diabetes in our like immediate family history, but on my mom's side, like her cousins and things like that, there's a lot of type 1 and type 2, but specifically type 1. So I think that, not that we were doomed to have it, but we just have a lot of autoimmune diseases. So,
well, Bethany, you're the first person I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that sounds like this. I'm adding this to my repertoire.
Okay.
How about anything digestion, constipation?
Well, my dad has a lot of digestion issues and he's had them for years. And I think it was listening to one of your podcasts that I realized, he doesn't have just digestive issues. Can't even speak today. Digestive issues. It's his type 2. I didn't mention he is type 2 diabetic. He maintains that he has good control of his diabetes, but in listening to, I'm pretty sure it was an episode of yours about, it was Arden's episode about the supplements that she takes and everything, and how, just in that I realized, oh my gosh, like my dad doesn't digest his food because he has had such poor control. Not that I know Arden, that was not her situation,
right? But
you talking about that made me realize the association between type 2 and those issues. But other than that, not that I'm aware of, though.
Okay.
My family's pretty.
They poop on a schedule.
Oh, I don't know about that. They don't talk about it. So I'm not sure.
You and your kids don't get together and chart out the poops?
Oh, now my kids talk about poop all the time, but I think that's just because kids are gross. So
you said they were great and fulfilling.
They are. They're so wonderful and they're so disgusting all at the same time.
I was going to say, I don't know. You find other people who you describe as great. And have you ever had a conversation with them about them being in the bathroom? I don't think so.
Well, that's true.
Although I had a conversation with Jenny about it the other day, and she was looking at me. Jenny's the only person I look at when I'm recording with them, for the most part. Like sometimes, like, you know, somebody comes on from Dexcom or something, and I see them. But like you and I are not looking at each other right now. Right. So I'm talking about Arden's digestive stuff with Jenny. We did an episode, which you'll hear 6 months before this comes out, about, you know, that T-shirt, proud owner of a dead pancreas or a useless pancreas or something like that. So we did.
It's not accurate.
Right. It's not accurate. So we did like an episode that explains what else your pancreas does, which specifically helps you digest food.
Right.
And so we're going over all of it. And sort of at the end, I think I tagged on to what we were talking about by telling her that, you know, I realized after watching Arden that I had a lot of the issues that she had. So I started taking the supplements that Arden was taking. And then I said something like, you could see on her face, she was like, don't talk about when you go to the bathroom. Like, she was looking at me like, just, I know where you're going. Just, why don't you stop? Like, that was, I felt like, I'm sorry, I'm going to cough. I felt like my mom was looking at me for a second. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I get up in the morning now and right away, just like the rest of you. And I said, but that was not my life for a while. But anyway, the whole time I'm talking, she's just looking at me like, you should stop now. Like, don't tell people about your bathroom habits. I'm like, I'm going to, Jenny. It's happening. We were talking with our eyes. I'm like, I'm absolutely going to do this. Because I think, because Bethany, like it took me like 2 years to kind of like suss out Arden's problems.
Right.
And her digestion, her poor digestion and poor elimination I think was really impacting her in a lot of different ways, in ways we're still finding out. I think some of her joint pain had to do with this. Like, you know, like a lot of different stuff. Your gut gets in, and I felt like I told Jenny, I feel like an internet hippie. I'm like, I balanced Arden's gut and her knee doesn't hurt anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like the crazy thing to say. And I'm aware of that, but it does seem to be what's happening. So, you know, like, so I want to share it with people. You have no idea the people I've heard back from already.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, the things that people don't talk about are often the things that the people that are in need to hear about, you know?
Yeah. So I tell people when I pooped because of the thing. That's all. I want you to poop better. Seriously, because you don't know what else is going on. Like, my back's hurt for my whole life. Like, is it going to stop?
Yeah.
Like, you know, is that inflammation? Like, you know what I mean? Because I took a steroid pack one time for a bug bite. It's a weird story, Bethany, but it happened. and my back stopped hurting.
Yeah.
My back hurts my whole life. Like, my whole life. Since I'm 20, it's hurt. And I get bit by a bug. Do you know this story, Bethany?
I don't know that I do.
I'm going to give you the highlights.
Okay.
Lawnmower breaks. I'm on the ground, putting the belt back on the pulley. I must get bit by something. I wake up the next day with this lump on my hand, kind of between my thumb and my forefinger on my right hand. Very itchy, but only if I touch it. If I don't touch it, it's not itchy. So I'm a boy. What I do is I don't touch it. That's the extent of how I'm going to handle it. The next day, a bump pops up on another finger and another, and they're starting to get like systemic on my hand. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Whatever bit me is powerful. And now, of course, again, boy, I start imagining my Spider-Man powers. I think I'm probably only about 12 hours away from being able to walk up a wall, so I'm not upset at all. Until, oh, Bethany, I feel so bad, but because you're a lady, but you've got kids and a husband, so until my testicles start to itch.
Okay. And
not itch, but like if they brush against something or touch something, like with the bump, vicious itching. And then if you start rubbing to it, you don't quell the itch, it just gets worse and worse and worse. This goes to other stuff around my testicles. I'm now in a panic. Again, I'm a boy. Bumps on my hand, I don't think twice. Everything itches, couldn't bother me. You start touching my penis, things are going to get fixed immediately because I got some needs, and that thing is one of them. So I'm right off to urgent care. And now I'm standing there trying to decide how much of this I'm going to tell to the poor, nurse practitioner who's now in a 4x4 room with me. And, and I'm like, listen, you don't need to see my balls, right? She goes, no, I don't think so. And I was like, great. I said, I don't want to show them to you. I don't feel like you want to see them. You know what I mean? So she goes, I'm going to put you on a steroid pack, blah, blah. Anyway, the pharmacist screws up the steroid pack by giving me directions that are too strong. She's got me taking too many steroids at the beginning of the thing. I figured out like 4 days into it, but I'm getting this super dose of steroids is what I wanted to explain. My heart did race a lot, which was not pleasant, but my back, these bumps on my hand, like magic, zoom, gone. All the itching, gone. My back felt amazing. I had all of my flexibility back. Like everything was fine. My bowels, everything started working better. And I was like, oh my God, inflammation has to impact me in a really significant way. Because the minute, I can't take these steroids forever, obviously, but the minute we took inflammation out of my body for a couple of days, this is 10 best days of my life. I felt like Superman.
It's crazy.
Yeah, really, it's insane. So I'm getting better now. Like the supplements are helping. My back is starting to loosen up a little bit. Like it's all kind of going in the right way. So
good.
Yeah, your stomach, what do you know? Crazy, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, Bethany, what have we not talked about that you wanted to?
Well, we were on MDI for 13 months, which I feel like it's a pretty long time, especially for probably listeners of your podcast. And I was able to kind of take what you do with pump and kind of translate it to shots. But I told Jane from the very beginning, she was only 4. She didn't want to have anything on her body. I said, Dexcom is not negotiable. You have to wear it. You have to wear it every day. I have to see your numbers. But I was like, we can wait and get a pump whenever you're ready. So she, about a year after diagnosis, said, I think I'm ready. So it took a little bit of time. We got real insurance once we were allowed to actually get insurance. So that was good. And, it took a little while to get the approval process and everything for her pump. So we started with the Dash, and we've actually been on Omnipod 5 since June. So June, July, August, September, October. So about 5 months now. We really like it a lot. And your series on Omnipod 5 is very helpful. And we actually worked with integrated diabetes, not specifically with Jenny, which was someone else there, but to kind of get even the original Omnipod DASH that we were on set up and the settings dialed in and everything, use them mostly just because our endocrinologist office kind of fell apart after our endocrinologist left. So we've had very good success with that. And I have been able to sleep through the night for the first time ever. Well, not ever, but the first time in 2 years, being on Omnipod 5. So that's been very, very nice.
That's amazing. So tell me about, first of all, MDI. So you kind of followed the way the podcast talks about using insulin, but you did it just with more shots. Is that how you handled it?
Yeah. So basically got to the point where, the first couple of weeks of injections were terrible. But after that, Jane just kind of gave in and was fine. And it even got to the point where she would give herself shots after a few months. So I was just doing a lot more shots. I had to not feel bad about it because it was helping manage her control so much. So we split the Lantus dose and did half in the morning, half in the evening. And then for her meals, we would pre-bolus with a shot, and then just in general, being more bold with insulin, giving corrective doses sooner, not being afraid for her to have a snack because that would require another shot, just giving her a shot if she wanted another snack, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we maintained a low 6 A1C on shots, and then have also stayed. Her last one was a 6.0 on Omnipod 5. So I'm really, really trying to get down in the 5s, even if it's just a 5.9. I want to break that barrier. So we go next week, and I'm hoping that maybe we'll be in the 5s.
That's amazing. Wow. Good for you. First of all, good for you. That's terrific. And good for her. Seriously, Jane being able to handle some extra shots along the way and and toughen it out like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about, so I'm assuming that what helped you go on Omnipod 5 and get your settings right was that you were being neat. You know, it's funny. We talk about aggressive, like it seems like that's excessive, but it's not really. Aggressive sometimes just means, you know, I mean, if everybody's going to be okay with like a 7.5 A1C and you start using enough insulin to get a 6 A1C, are you being aggressive or are you using the proper amount of insulin? You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
so you found a way to use the proper amount of insulin, use it where it needs to be. And so then when you translate that total daily insulin to Omnipod 5, you had good success with it, like pretty quickly, it sounds like.
Yes. The thing that was the hardest for me to figure out, and I'm still tweaking with it, is, you know, Jane's body, she's so tiny, even at 6. And so different locations on her body are a lot more sensitive to insulin than others.
Sure.
So when she was on the Dash, you know, I had different basal programs. And so if we put it on her leg, she had more basal. If we put it on her stomach, she had a significant less amount of basal because her stomach's super sensitive. But you can't do that with Omnipod and with the 5.
Omnipod 5.
You can't. Yeah. And so when it's in automated mode, at least. And so I was finding like, okay, if her pod has been on her leg for the past, you know, 2 or 3 pods alternating, you know, between spots on her legs, and her daily insulin is like 18 units, she's going to need significantly less when I now have to move it on her body and move it to her arm or to her stomach. And so we would experience a lot of lows. And then in the reverse, if it had been on her stomach and then moving it to her leg, we would experience a lot of highs for that transitional pod. So I figured out to do a couple of different things. I changed her insulin sensitivity factor pretty drastically, depending on where it is on her body. And then I also changed her goal number. You know, I hear a lot of people in the diabetes community, especially people that are looping. I actually built Loop in between us being on Dash and getting approved for Omnipod 5, and was planning on looping. But then we got approved for Omnipod 5, and it's just less
easier.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. So, but you hear a lot of people in that community. I'm in the, you know, the looping Facebook groups and everything too. And they all kind of not shame Omnipod 5, but are a little disappointed that the lowest setting you can put it, like the goal is 110. But I will say we have found a lot of stability below 110 on the Omnipod 5. And there are times when, like today, I had to change her pod last night. And before she went to school today, I changed her goal to actually be 130 instead of 110, because I moved it, just like I talked about last night, it was on her leg. And then I had to move it to her stomach. Mm-hmm. I knew she was going to be more sensitive. I didn't want her school to be having to do, she's in kindergarten this year. I didn't want them to have to be dealing with her going low. So I changed it to 130, and she's just cruising real steady. You know, she just ate snacks, so she's going up a little bit, but it works really well. She does not go low very often. And even though the goal that I have for her right now is 130, she stays closer to 100 by doing that. So depending on where it is and what her ratios are and everything. But
Kari talked about that in those Omnipod 5 episodes I did, right? That just because it's a target doesn't mean that's where your blood sugar is going to be. Yes.
But I think that's, you know, can be misleading when you don't hear somebody say that specifically, like, oh, well, it's going to keep me at 130 the whole time. No, it doesn't. It doesn't even keep you at 110 the whole time. When we, you know, if I kept it at 110 on her stomach right after it had learned, you know, because the algorithm learns from the previous pod, if the previous pod had been on her leg, and I said, okay, keep her at 110 on her stomach, it's going to keep her at probably 80, which, you know, then if she's got active insulin, she's running around at recess, whatever, that's not where I want her. I want her a little higher than that at school. So just had to kind of tweak and learn about it. But
no, you figured out a lot for yourself.
Yeah.
It was excellent. Yeah. Well, we had last night. So I get in bed. I'm like, I said, I made a general announcement as I walk through the house. Nobody cares because everybody's sick. I'm like, I'm going to bed. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I texted Arden. Arden looked like she had eaten something like at 10 o'clock at night. And so I texted her. I was like, listen, like she was like, she had dinner. She rose up to like 150 and then ate again. And I don't know. I'm like, I don't know what you ate. I don't care. I'm like, but you got to crush this number because I'm going to sleep. And
Right.
I don't want to be involved in this. Like,
don't bother me.
Yeah, you take care of this. So I'm laying in bed, alternating between freezing and sweating. And I'm like, I can't sleep. And her blood sugar, it looks like Loop is making these aggressive boluses, but I'm like, these are too aggressive to be Loop. Like, what is she doing? So she's busy doing homework and trying to, like, she just sees her blood sugar going up and she's not completely focused on it. So she's making these boluses. Mm-hmm. And finally I texted her, I'm like, Arden, listen, I know you're doing this on your own, but you're making a mistake here and it's going to get worse. So I'm like, you're bolusing and the algorithm sees your bolus as too much insulin. So it's taking your basal away.
Right.
Your problem is that your carb count for your last meal wasn't big enough. Like, so it believes there's 20 carbs in there. It believes it's given you the insulin for the 20 carbs already. And any extra you put in, despite the number that your blood sugar is, it thinks is going to make you low. So here's what you need to do. And I gave her 3 options because I personally thought I was going to pass out. And I forget what I said to her. I said, you can do an override. You could do fake carbs. You could, like, I gave her these 3 different options to do. And I don't know which one she did, but the next time I opened my eyes and looked, her blood sugar was just going, by now she had taken away so much basal. She's 220 and it's jumping up. So I'm like texting her. It's late at night. I don't know what schedule she's on. I can't freaking figure it out. Like, that's like 1:00. And I'm like, Arden, are you awake? And she goes, no. And I was like, you have to do. So I'm like, forget what you think. Do this right now. Mm-hmm. And I told her to set an override for like 180%, make her targets like 85, and bolus 2 units. And she sets the override and falls asleep again. So I wait like a half an hour. And I'm like, why is this freaking? I know this works. Like, I know I'm right,
Right.
And I'm like, I'm the guy from the podcast. Like, I did the right thing. And so I look back, I see she doesn't make the bolus. So I felt bad. I woke her up at like 3 a.m. And I was like, I need you to bolus 2 units. And she goes, Dad, I don't think I need 2 units. And I said, well, A, you're asleep, and B, your blood sugar is 240. So bolus. And so she did, and it came down the way I expected it to. Would have happened an hour sooner if, she wouldn't have fallen asleep in the middle of it. But she's been super stable for the last, I don't know, 6 hours or so.
Yeah.
So, and hold on a second. This is so interesting. Arden is texting me now. She is going to pick up her insulin for the very first time in her life.
Oh. Don't leave it in your car.
Yeah, she doesn't have a car.
Oh, true.
I'm not, I don't know what you think's going on over here, but I ain't got that kind of money. I'm just sending a car to I guess I'm
don't say her college.
Yeah, I'm supposed to say, where did she joke about going?
Oh yeah.
She's like, oh, she said Chicago. I'm going to school in Chicago, Dad. Tell people that. And I was like, okay. All right, hold on. I'm searching an email for her endo. And because I know the address is in there. And I'm sending it to her now. All right, so I sent her the address. So Arden's going to pick up her insulin order for the very first time in her life because it's always come to us in the mail, actually.
That's crazy.
And I sent
adulting.
Her. Well, Bethany, first of all, I'm going to be ringing this bell a lot this year. I sent Arden to school with enough insulin to get her through 10 weeks.
Oh, good.
The food at school is so, I almost cursed. The food at school is so terrible. Yeah. That she texted me like a week ago and she goes, I am not going to have enough insulin to get home. And I'm like, how is that possible? And then I started looking at everything and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll take care of it. So I sent an email to the endo and she goes, Arden hasn't been here in a year. I can't write you a prescription. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like, Arden hasn't been there in a year? That's not right. We go religiously to the endocrinologist. So much so that when we leave, Arden goes, why do we come here so much? So I started thinking about it and I realized that we've been working so hard on Arden's digestive issues over the last year. and
I forgot about
her
endo.
hormonal stuff and everything, I didn't take her to the endocrinologist. I blame COVID, being serious,
Right.
For putting us all on this, because, you go to the endo, and at the end of it, you walk out, you hand them your paperwork, and they go, when do you want to come back? And you set up another appointment.
Right.
But when you get off a Zoom with your endo, they don't go.
You don't make an appointment.
Right. And I was like, oh, fair enough. So I'm like, listen, I promise we didn't do this on purpose. I'll make an appointment right now if you send her insulin. And she's like, okay. Middle of October, I couldn't get an appointment until January 3rd.
Oh my gosh.
And
Crazy.
I felt like I was signing up for my own podcast.
Yeah.
So far in the future. But isn't that interesting? Like in the time of this podcast, it used to be like, hey dad, I'm at lunch now. I'm going to gym. And now she's like, I have to go pick up my insulin at college.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. It must feel like people who listen must feel like, I don't know. Must be interesting for them to hear somebody get older like that.
It is.
Anyway. All right. I'm sorry. We were talking about Omnipod 5 and algorithms and everything.
Yeah.
And so you're enjoying Omnipod 5.
I am very much. I'm getting more sleep than I've gotten in a very long time, which is so nice.
Oh, tell me about that. So how long have you been doing Omnipod 5, and how has your life changed with the sleeping?
Let's see. She started at the end of June. So 5-ish months now.
Coming up on 5, yeah.
And it's been great. I mean, obviously we still have days that are not good, and we still have days that, unforeseen other circumstances. She goes through a growth spurt, or, she just, the past probably like a week ago, I guess she probably had whatever I have now. I got it from her, but she overall is my healthiest child. Like, she does not show symptoms when she's sick. So like the poor child, when she was a baby, she had strep throat. She wasn't a baby, she was a toddler. She had strep throat, and I didn't know until she broke out in a rash all over her entire body. And I took her to the doctor, and they were like, yeah, this is scarlet fever. Like, didn't that die hundreds of years ago?
Isn't that from a CW show I watched with like a bunch of young kids,
Yeah. I was like, what in the world? They were like, it starts as strep throat. If it goes untreated, it turns into this. And I was like, she was acting completely normal. So she's such a tough little girl. And so, I won't know that she's actually sick, except for the fact that she's all of a sudden needing tons and tons more insulin, which then that also can kind of throw off the next pod algorithm if she all of a sudden kicks it and is fine. But we're figuring that out. But yes, for the most part, unless it's like that, where she's having a growth spurt or is sick, every once in a while I'll have to wake up in the middle of the night and go and give her an actual bolus instead of just letting the algorithm take care of it. And it will, even if I left it would bring her down. I just don't want her staying high, for several hours for it to bring her down when she's fighting something like that. But for the most part, I've been able to sleep through the night, which has literally been life-changing. So
good. Yeah, I think it's a huge piece of all this, and we don't pay enough attention to it. I think it's one of those slippery slope things where at first you're like, oh, I'm not sleeping as much. And then it's like, I'm tired all the time. And then eventually you realize this is never going to stop. And then so you start making those stupid jokes like, oh, I don't need that much sleep. Like, I'm okay. And then before you know it, you're decimated and you don't realize it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And before, when we were still doing, especially when we were still doing MDI, I just remember telling my husband, like, I don't think I'm ever going to sleep again in my life, and I'm not going to be okay if I can't get more sleep than this. But it's been so nice.
Good. I'm glad. That's wonderful. And, hormonal impacts will get, I'm interested, like as she gets older, I'm interested to see how Omnipod 5 helps, where it needs help. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah. They all do. Like, Arden's obviously last night needed help, and she's looping, and that thing's set up about as aggressively as it can be. Oh my gosh, Tandem, Bright Control IQ, same issues. It's just not a perfect system. It's a great system. It's amazing. You have to learn how to use it. Like there's times when I thought, and I still believe, that the introduction of these algorithms to people is going to be I was going to say fraught with, but it's going to encompass years of people learning how to use algorithms.
Right.
And that's going to have to permeate the space so that people understand, like what I talked about with Arden. Like, you can't just bolus while the thing's in auto mode because it thinks that that's extra insulin. I know, it's not. It doesn't know. It's dumb. It's following settings. So, people will learn, and then the word spreads, and that's how, it's how you educate a group of people. So, cool. Bethany, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go pass out.
Okay. Well, I did want to just tell you,
Thank
you. Thank you for the podcast. And thank you you posted maybe like a week or so ago, a 24-hour graph of Arden, of her Dexcom, and she'd been high the majority of the time. And you talked about a lot of the reasons why she was high, but for some reason that sounds terrible maybe, but that was so comforting to me to see, because, you listen to the podcast and you're so great about managing it. And Arden, you always talk about Arden's great A1Cs and everything. And I'm kind of a perfectionist, I guess, at things. And I try to strive for better. Like, let's get it in the fives, and I showed that to my husband, and I was like, see, even Arden has bad days. And he was like, of course she does. Everyone does. You have the same A1C. Well, not me, but Jane has the same A1C that Arden has had for probably a while. Like, you're doing just as good as he is. Not bragging on myself, but just the realization of like that Arden does have a great A1C, but that's not without some highs, so just realizing that it's okay if we do have spikes, or if we have a sickness and Jane's hanging out high. What matters is that we go and we take care of it. We don't let her stay there for forever. So but you posting that was just really encouraging, as weird as that sounds. So
it was a very popular post on the Facebook page. I know that. And the sentiment rung through, just like you said. Like, people were oddly thrilled to see Arden's blood sugar high. And
sorry, Arden.
And I mean, I can't make, you understand, like, I can't make this podcast and every day say, well, don't anyone think that this means Arden's blood sugar is always 87 or something like that.
Right.
So it's conversational, and so it can't be said constantly. But I always assume it's just understood. Like, she eats a variety of carbs. She's got, hormonal impacts. She's, struggled with hormone problems. Like, she's at college. Like, I don't know what, like, I get it. Like, I understand why people look and go, oh, I thought it was perfect all the time. But yeah, I have no trouble sharing that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's what it is. So, I mean, it's
nice to know that, we're all in it, and everybody has some highs, and that's okay. So,
well, if my daughter's pain makes you happy, then by all means.
I didn't mean it that way. But truly, thank you so much for the work that you do on the podcast. And, I learned so much in those early days, and I am convinced that Jane's health is significantly better because of the knowledge that I learned from your podcast. So,
oh, that's wonderful. And I appreciate you saying that so much. Thank you. Me, Scott, she, Jane. Yeah.
Now go take a nap.
Yeah, no, please. I might just pass out on the floor when I turn around. I'm holding it together, I think, admirably.
Yes.
But if I talk too long, my chest is like, we're going to cough, and I'm like holding it in.
Yeah, and if you hold back a cough, then you basically die. So
is that what happens?
Well, have you ever done that before? It's usually like in the middle of something that you have to be incredibly quiet in, and you just like try to hold down a cough, and then it becomes like a massive coughing attack, and you can't control yourself at all.
I think that's psychological for people.
Really?
I saw Yo-Yo Ma once, and the man in front of me, because there were breaks in between the pieces that they were playing. Mm-hmm. And during the playing, the whole time, the guy in front of me, right? The playing stops. There's no reason we have to be quiet. For the entire break, the man's silent. The bell goes off. Ding, ding, ding.
Starts calling.
The lights dim. We're going to come back on. I'm like, oh my God, you're a lunatic. So this person, it was the anxiety, I think. You know what I mean? Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
it happened to me at the last funeral I went to. I was trying not to make a tiny little cough, just like keep it in. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I literally am dying, coughing so hard I had to leave and go to the reception area and get something to drink because
oh my God, you busted up a funeral?
Stop. Yeah, it was.
Was it at least somebody on your husband's side of the family so you didn't care as much?
No, it was one of my friends, but she didn't know. It was fine.
I'm so
Not my friend's funeral, my friend's father's funeral. So it was fine.
I thought you said one of my
No.
Because you're in your early 30s. I go, we're being very blasé about a woman in her early 30s passing away.
Sorry.
And so one of your friend's fathers.
Yes.
You were there for moral support, or did you know him?
No, I'd never met him, just moral support. Somebody told me years and years ago that you go to funerals for the living, not for the dead. And that's always stuck with me. So.
Oh, you're lovely. You went to your friend's father's funeral and you had never met him.
Yes.
Wow, you're a nicer person than I am. I just realized that while you were talking. I was like, I would not do that. I'm so here it comes. Oh my God. Can you imagine if one day this is pulled out of an archive? This is like the last time I recorded. Because I hope I did a good job. If this is
yeah, you did great.
I didn't know you were going to say something nice about me. All right, I wouldn't have talked over you. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate this. A huge thanks to Bethany for coming on the show today and sharing her family story. I also want to thank US Med and remind you to go to usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Check out the contour meters at contournext.com/juicebox. Your meters and test strips may be cheaper in cash than you're paying right now through your insurance. Get yourself an accurate meter. Get a contour meter. contournext.com/juicebox. And don't forget to check out the Facebook page and the private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. What a great community. You're going to love it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.